Matt Vaadi is a social entrepreneur focused on alleviating homelessness in South Carolina. He accomplishes this mission by donating 3% of all revenue from his companies to local charities focused on addressing this need. Matt has been working in the payroll and HR space since 2003. He is passionate about creating better workplaces and helping small businesses grow. He is a best-selling author of the book Ping Pong is Not a Strategy: How to Create an Awesome Organizational Culture. He now serves as CEO of guHRoo, Payroll and HR, which is an HR software and outsourcing firm in Columbia, South Carolina, in the United States. guHRoo provides small and medium-sized businesses with simple software and expert support for payroll, benefits, HR, and compliance. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I know for a lot of you, you're probably like me, you're a little tired of hearing about all the ways AI can not only simplify your life, but also can give you a competitive edge in your role. And maybe you're not sure where to start. So today I'm going to give you some tips on how to get started using AI in a professional capacity and beyond that. I'd love to hear in the chat from those of you right now, if you're using AI in your business, share some use cases, share some tools that you're using so we can get a sense. If you're not using it in any way, shape, or form, would love to hear that as well. Always love to see the engagement in the chat. And thank you again for that intro. If you guys have any questions, pile them in there and I'll be happy to address them to the best of my ability throughout the presentation. So when it comes to AI, we're starting to see two real schools of thought here. We're seeing the folks that are, obviously believe that AI is going to be this wave that is the Terminator end of the world that is coming upon us, and we're all just kind of riding this thing out until it's over. And we have folks that maybe don't believe that AI is everything that you thought it was. And so for me, I'm somewhere in the middle here. I believe that these technological advancements, while not necessarily new, have made large leaps forward here in recent years. Or months, excuse me, not years, in days every time. As a matter of fact, today, as I was preparing my final thoughts for this, there was another large advancement with one tool, which I'm going to spend a lot of time on today, called ChatGPT, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, at least have heard of it. Seeing in the chat here, not using AI yet. Yeah, and please, by all means, everybody, please connect with me on LinkedIn during and after the presentation when we're done here. But so we're going to talk about some things today that are going to help you to leverage AI immediately. I'm literally going to pull open ChatGPT in the back half of this. I'm going to show you some prompts you can use today. I'm going to share 5 of the tools that I use for daily AI tools to help make me more efficient. A brief bit about me. Thank you for that intro. I won't bore you with too much more about it, but I'm a family guy. If you don't find me here at my house, you'll find me with the crew that's hovering around me here on the other side of this camera at the ball fields. We're a big baseball and football family. HR is my jam. I used to have in that bio, it used to say I've been in HR since 2003, which is basically the Stone Ages at this point. And so, this is what I love. I dive deep into organizational culture and strategy and that cross section of technology and how we can use technology to get the most out of our number one asset, and that's our people. And I think you guys are a little too far for me to come and make a pizza trip down there, but I'd love to hear the best pizza joints if I ever come and visit you guys. And so, yeah, I'm looking at some different things in here. Chris looks like he's our guy here. He may have some tips for us when we get into it, but guHRoo, as alluded to, we're a payroll and human resources software and outsourcing company for US-based companies. We are a mission-based company. We give away 5% of our company to great causes like alleviating homelessness in our local circles and beyond. So what are we going to go through today? I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and how we've leveraged AI in recent months, particularly. Talk about what is AI, just kind of a high-level glossary of some of the common terms that you're hearing right now related to artificial intelligence. Handle a couple of the misconceptions, but most of the time I'm going to spend on these 5 tools that you can use. And there's plenty of tools you can use. These are just a few that we use every day that I think can be very helpful. And then a few easy wins that you can take right out of here. And I've even got a few notes that I can share with everybody afterwards to help you with some prompts. So from our side, when AI started becoming a big hot topic and there was a lot going on, we started going, man, what are all the different AI tools we can use? Let's go. Everybody on the leadership team, got together and said, what are the tools we can use to make our team more efficient? We started this mantra of everybody on our team should have a robot. And so we wanted everybody to be, 50% more efficient because they were leveraging technology to do their work. In reality, what we found was that we were kind of looking for tools rather than trying to solve problems. And so we think about this in terms of, if you're going to look to use AI inside of your organization, first start with the pains that your organization has. Don't go looking for vitamins and things to use just because they're cool and they're fun and they do things quicker, et cetera. There's lots of different things out there that you can use. You can get lost. There are new AI tools being built by the day, especially because of the backends available now. And I'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But that's the first biggest thing, is just make sure that you're not a hammer looking for a nail. Like, you want to be solving an actual problem that your organization has and not just playing with a whole bunch of technology tools. Because it's very easy once you get into this rabbit hole to do that. It brings me to a good story. So our advisory firm that our company uses, they help us out with all of our financial transactions. They help us evaluate any M&A opportunities. They act as our CFO among a multitude of other things. But one evening, I had stumbled upon the code interpreter tool inside of ChatGPT, which is now called Data Analysis Tool. And I had messaged our fractional CFO, and I said, hey, are you using this code interpreter tool inside of ChatGPT yet? And he said no. And I said, you need to log in right now and use this. And he texted me back 5 minutes later, and he said, I just got an output out of this thing that I've been waiting on my analyst for 2 weeks to complete the work. That was a 5-minute time period from the time I had texted him that this was available to the time he had it returned to him. That's how powerful some of these tools can be. And so it is important to start to familiarize yourself with what's available and some of the ways to use it. And as we were talking about just before jumping on this call with David in the waiting room, for those of you that kind of sit in that first example of, or, the second example of AI is just another buzzword, it's just another thing that's going to come and go. I don't believe that. Congress doesn't believe that, as we saw this week in the United States. They asked some of the largest CEOs of technology companies in the United States to report to Congress on what we can do to slow the spread of AI due to security concerns, among other things. And so it's not going anywhere. And so when you're standing on the front door of the internet, you don't want to be the person saying, oh, the internet's not going to be a thing. We all saw the articles of people from the 90s who felt that way. So let's see how we can use these tools to help us to get better. But first, let's look at what they actually are. So what is AI? I mean, artificial intelligence, I think we all have some semblance of what that is. It's a simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to really think, learn, and make decisions like humans would. And, it's computer science, it's algorithms, it's all the stuff that we've been leaning on for years. However, now we've got some subsets that have become much more powerful in recent months. One of those in particular is large language models, so LLM. LLMs are machine learning models trained to understand and generate human-like text. So if you've played around with ChatGPT at all, or you've seen any of these things, that is an LLM. They're trained on massive, massive data sets. So as an example, right now, ChatGPT is trained on the entire internet up until August 2022. I mean, imagine how much information that is to access. And also how much easier it is once you get all that raw data in there versus things that are being leveraged through, search engine optimization to get good answers and to get good information. So large language models are something, and we're going to look at those in action. Generative AI is something that's on top of this. So generative AI is something that's going to create new data that resembles that given data set. So again, if we're building on top of LLM, A good example of generative AI would be something like Dolly, which generates images, generates, can generate files, it can generate all sorts of things. This is really, something that classifies data, generates something new from the data set it has underneath it. It's being used in the applications today, like image generation, text to speech, and even folks are using it. You're probably starting to see these tools where people are generating music and saying, oh, can you create a song that sounds like my favorite artist, which we're actually starting to see a good bit of copyright infringement cases in the United States because of what's coming out of generative AI. And all of this is sitting on, working with machine learning. So this is really what allows the systems to learn from the data. They're learning from these large data sets using algorithms and statistical techniques to effectively not only learn from that data, but also be able to generate information from it. So I think it's important particularly to know what these top two are, because they're what a lot of the tools being built right now are using. So why should you care? Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, again, we're kind of standing here on the doorstep of the internet as I see it. It's not something that's going to go away. It's not one of these things you can tuck your head in the sand and hope that it's not going to impact your career at some point. Even if you're only going to be working for 3 more years, you're going to be dealing with AI in your career. So not only that, but the fact is it can make you a lot more efficient. It can help you to make better decisions, and it can be a competitive advantage depending on what your company does. We work with a lot of accounting firms, CPAs here in the United States, and the ones that are leveraging technologies like this to get ahead are creating, they're able to circumvent some of the issues that they're having with staffing. So for us, I don't know how you guys are dealing with the hiring crunch down in Latin America, but it's a big problem for us right now, particularly in the finance sector, to get people that are qualified. Even new graduates are hot commodities coming out. So we've really got 3 choices, that's to hire, to automate, or to delete and delegate and outsource, right? So we want to make sure that we're using all the tools we have at our capacity that can do it much more efficiently than a human could, or make our humans more efficient for that. So one of the things I think that, I saw somebody's background when we logged in here, they had big data all over their background. And it's interesting when you think about what we're actually looking at here with AI, it's really just a continuation of the big data movement we've seen over recent years. This has been a very in vogue topic for the last couple decades in reality, is that we've got all these great tools at our disposal, from a predictive analytics perspective, from the ability to access a lot of different information, to be able to predict trends, to be able to analyze that data and make good decisions on behalf of our clients and our companies. And AI is just, the continuation of that data and giving us better tools for it. But we're seeing a lot of misconceptions around what AI can and can't do. The first one is, AI will replace human jobs. Well, I think for a lot of us, that's part of the hope, right? Is that we can get, again, in reality, with a lot of our more professional services and more knowledge economy types of roles, we are low on talent. So we want AI to replace a portion of jobs, particularly these things that are rote tasks that have to occur over and over and over again. They're redundant. We don't want to hire entry-level people to do data entry. We don't want to hire, we don't want to have to think about complex things that we don't need to. And so the AI is actually going to hopefully, yes, replace some human jobs, but unfortunately not all of them, right? I think our fast food chains wish they could replace a lot of the jobs there. The other thing is, a lot of folks think it's too complicated for me to get in. I'm not sure what the entry point is. I don't know how to use AI. I don't understand it. It just feels like it's completely overwhelming and it sounds too technical. Well, again, now the beauty is that all the technical people have created the tools for people like us, or myself anyway, somebody who is, I own a software company, but I can't write a line of code. This gives me access to overwhelming amounts of information in a way that's consumable and usable. And we'll dive into a few of those here in just a second. So let's talk about some of the tools I use regularly. And there are many out there. I just focus on these because they're ones that I am very familiar with and have served us quite well over some of these for years. So ChatGPT, I won't get too much into this because we're going to talk about it in depth here in a couple minutes. Fireflies.ai. Fireflies.ai is a tool that will record your meetings. So if I had my Fireflies in this Zoom right now, which there's a setting in there that I can have it show up to any meeting I'm on, whether it's in Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and it's going to not just record the meeting, it's going to take notes from the meeting. It's going to also take searchable notes. So when I log into Fireflies, I can search through what questions were asked during the meeting. What was the tone of the person asking the question? It's going to organize the meeting notes so that I don't have to have somebody transcribe those notes and send them to the client. So one of the ways we use this is during our implementation meetings when we're setting up a new client. We have Fireflies writing alongside in those meetings, and it's sending all of the meeting recap notes over to the client along with the action items and any other information that we need. This helps to save us a tremendous amount of time and creates a log that we can go back and search through later inside of Fireflies. It's a great tool, and no, they're not paying me. As a matter of fact, I'm paying all these companies. They should be paying me. Loom is another one if you're not familiar with Loom. So a lot of these started without AI in them, if you will. So Loom didn't have a whole bunch of AI functionality when we first started using it. But really what it is just a very elegant screen capture and recording tool. And so what it allows me to do is if I were trying to show you this information right now, but we weren't able to talk on the phone at the same time, I could record a 3-minute video where I'm walking through this. Loom would transcribe that video, and the AI then organizes those notes in a more consumable fashion for the individual who's then looking at it later. So now it's putting it into bulleted notes with headlines and headers, and it looks like almost like a blog post was written below the video about what we discussed. It is the best way to delegate that I have ever found. So now not only if I create a Loom library of videos inside of here, not only do I have a video showing somebody how to do something with written notes, but now when the next person gets hired and they need to take over that task, all they need to do is go in there and watch the video and they've got all the notes and everything is right in one spot. So Loom is a tremendous tool, continues to advance more as they continue to leverage more AI tools inside of it. Grammarly is another one that falls into the same path for me personally. We've been using Grammarly for years. I'm sure many of you on this call have as well. It simply fixes your grammar and gives you suggestions. It's like the Microsoft Word or Google Documents on steroids. It gives you a little bit more than the spell check. It gives you some grammar fixes. But now with their AI tools, it will actually write full emails for you. It will write out full posts for you. It will take prompts. It will, you can really have it write a lot of things for you natively directly inside of where you're working. So if I'm in Gmail right now, Grammarly is going to show me a button that says, would you like me to reply to this email for you? And it will write the reply, and all I have to do is give it a brief prompt, and it will write that for me. So client communications, internal communications, tremendous way to save a ton of time and do so in a way that looks professional. Now, that's the other thing, too. A lot of folks know, hey, what I really want to tell David is I just want to tell him that I don't have time for this meeting. And so I can just write that. Please politely tell David I don't have time for this meeting. And it will write up a nice 3-paragraph email that sounds super professional and is thankful for his time and acknowledgement, but lets him know that now is not the right time. And then finally, Bard. So Bard is Google's version of ChatGPT. So why would I want Google's version of ChatGPT? Now, admittedly, it's much less powerful in terms of the data set that it has available, which is ironic because it's in Google. However, the reality is that ChatGPT has just been at it a little bit longer. They've got a higher powered group of developers, more budget put behind it. And so they're just out in front a little bit. Bard has something really unique, though, in that it does have access to Google. So if I go in right now and I start searching things inside of Bard, so I like to use the marketing example. Marketing, obviously, we're finance people, so this isn't super useful to us in a day-to-day, but I think it illustrates how this could be used. I could go in there right now and say, hey, I'm trying to write an article for finance executives where I want to share the top GPT prompts. Can you help me create a keyword list for this and provide real-time keyword data of how many active searches per month along with the competition level for that keyword? So I'm sure we've got a lot of writers on here, a lot of thought leaders. This is a great way to gather information based on actual industry search, based on actual information that's pulling from the #1 search tool in the world inside of Google. So Bard is very good at that. And we're seeing more and more, for those of you that are Google Suite users like us, that's why that's in there. Microsoft has some similar functionalities, but we're seeing Bard get more deeply embedded inside of the Google Suite as well to do some of those things like we described earlier with Grammarly, automatically reply to this email. It's summarizing conversations for me in chat. It's doing a lot of great things to help to make my time in life a little bit more efficient on a day-to-day. So those are a handful of tools we're using, but as promised, we're going to spend most of our time here getting into ChatGPT in just a second. But inevitably, the question that comes up among finance executives, and it should, is what about security of these systems, and how do I make sure that we're using tools that are secure and that our data is secure? Well, a lot of the protocols are similar to what you're doing today, but I think the first thing that I like to just emphasize is that the types of data you're putting into the tools or allowing it access to are the first and foremost thing you want to pay attention to. So we're about to look at ChatGPT in a minute, and I'm going to upload some files to it. But guess who's uploading the files? Me. So I have the ability to dictate what's in those files. I'm not going to put social security numbers and people's personal name and personally identifiable information in there. I'm going to put raw data in there. I'm going to put numbers. So I don't have to worry about security when I'm uploading a bunch of raw numbers into a system. They're admittedly, one of the first things you're going to see in there is they use all of the information you put in there as training data. And so what does that mean? That means, as far as I'm concerned, and I know that it's not this simple, I just assume everybody who works there has access to everything I put in there. I know that's not true, but that's the safe way to think about it, right? So then I know I'm not going to put in information that I would not want anybody outside of my organization to use. Next up is vetting vendors. So I'm going to keep picking on ChatGPT because I think, the chat, again, it's been pretty symbolic of what most of these meetings have looked like, and that most folks have kind of heard about this, but haven't really played with it too awfully much. The biggest thing for vendors for me, so you'd want to vet Fireflies.ai, make sure it jives with your security protocols internally. But as you're about to see in ChatGPT, there's a big plugin community. These plugins, I don't know anything about their security until I really dive deep into it. So I want to make sure I vet each of these plugins because, again, a lot of them are the type of thing where you're going to share information with them that you may not even be aware of if you don't read the fine print. So you want to really make sure that you're taking the time to make sure that these folks jive with what your internal security protocols are, which is the final piece of this, is just to make sure, if anything, first and foremost, you should review it against your own internal security policies. But if things go south, you want to make sure that you're isolating any affected systems to prevent further damage. But, it's going to be just like any other possible security risk that we deal with on the internet. I don't think that's changed in a drastic fashion, but I do feel like there's a need to address it. So what is ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is a product that was created by a company called OpenAI. So OpenAI is really the data set behind ChatGPT. And so when you start to think about AI and why so many of these companies have been able to deploy AI so quickly in the last 6 months, it's because they're layering their own product on top of OpenAI the same way ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is just a product that sits on the front end of all this data. And OpenAI, the tool that's making all this data readable, accessible, usable, and putting it into LLMs, generative AI, all these different things we talked about. And so OpenAI is effectively going to be, you think about IBM's Watson, you think about, Amazon Alexa. It's really in that same vein of a lot of companies are just going to continue to build things on top of this data set and use it to create their own quote unquote AI. In reality, they've created nothing. They're just leveraging the back end of someone else's data set. Again, nothing new for us. It's just the most powerful data set the world has ever seen, and it's being leveraged in a way that we haven't used it before. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually pull open Chat GPT here. Let me go back to the chat real quick. I'm curious how many folks have, I didn't see a lot of people using Chat GPT. Oh, where'd it go? Yeah, not a lot going on with not using AI yet. We're in a CPA firm out of Texas. Oh, cool. Specific UK, you would use it for specific use cases, resume, cover letters, essay articles. Yep. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing in, right? Is like using it to write for me. Is a very good use of the tool itself. So I'm going to give you guys a quick tour of it because I think it's important. I'll zoom in here a little bit. Make things bigger for my old eyes and anybody else who fits into that category on here. No judgment there. So I think it's important to know first and foremost, I am in the paid version of ChatGPT. It's only $20 a month. And I think if you try it for a month, you don't use it, great. You lost $20. You know, that's what it's going to cost you to go get lunch. If you do use it irregularly, like I do, which I use it daily, you'll find it's worth 20, 30 times what you pay for it at a minimum. I think that's even on the low end. The reason I bring up that it's the paid model, because there is a free model, which gets you access to GPT-3. And so this is effectively a chat that's going to do a lot of these sorts of things, like, you know, explain this topic to me, recommend a dish. These are some good samples. But when I open up the paid version, then I get access to things like plugins and advanced data analysis and GPT-4. And so we're going to look at what these are right now. So plugins and advanced data analysis are worth their weight in gold. So when I go to here and I go to say, hey, I want to use advanced data analysis, what this allows me to do is upload files. And I'm going to show a prompt here. I'm going to go through what are called prompts in just a moment, which are basically when I request something of the AI for it to create something for me. I've got some basic ones, and then I've got some ones that are a little bit more advanced. And then the plugins are what allows it to act. I can build a plugin the same way. Think about plugins for ChatGPT the same way I build apps for the iPhone. So these are a bunch of apps that were built for ChatGPT that plug into it. So this one that I had tagged here gives it access to the internet. So it's going to browse real-time information from the internet. There's a plugin store with just hundreds of these things. And so this one is actually kind of fun. You can upload PDFs and actually chat and ask questions of the PDF. There's all sorts of stuff in here. Again, it would take you a long time to dig through all these, but I'm going to help you out with some of these basic things here just to get started. So let's look at kind of a beginner prompt here we could do. So somebody mentioned earlier oh boy, maybe I'm going a little too deep. So let's say I'm trying to create a drop down in a Google cell, and I'm not a super, obviously everybody on this call is super users of Excel and Google Sheets, but I'm not. So I might want to put in a prompt says, I'm trying to create drop downs in a cell in Google Sheets. Can you provide me with the formula? Ask any questions you need to make it a complete formula. It's going to say, well, it's not really a formula, Matt. And then it's going to start to give me this answer here. So let's think about this at its most simplistic thing as you watch it do the work here in front of me. Let's just say you use the free version. You're just getting rid of Googling here, right? So now I don't have to go and filter through a bunch of responses on Google, which are really just the people who are best at search engine optimization and get to the top of Google. I'm getting a detailed breakdown of what I need without having to filter through a bunch of articles. Now I can also continue to prompt on this, right? So now, okay, got any more questions? Feel free to ask. I can keep that conversation going if I want. For the sake of time today, I'm not going to do that. Well, what I am going to do, I can see I've still got plugins on. I don't want plugins on right yet. So let's do one that's a little more little more advanced here. So let's say I want some tax audit guidance tax audit preparation guidance. So we had some CPAs on here. So I'm telling it what it is. You are an expert tax accountant. You've been given the following business to analyze. guHRoo, first print the heading, tax audit process overview. Next, provide an overview of the tax audit process for this business. Next, print the heading, preparing for a tax audit, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll send out, if you guys drop me a note, I'll give you my email afterwards, and I'll send you all these prompts that I'm using. I got about 25 on a document over here. These are just a few I'm using as examples. So this kind of goes into, this is just a little bit more advanced of what somebody had shared in the chat. I would like for this to do some writing for me, right? This is a nice communication. And maybe even if I'm not sure of the steps, this is giving me a step-by-step of what to do. Oh, nice. It's even giving me a little table here I can send to my client. Perfect. Or I can use this for my own business and use these considerations as I do that. Now, this one is my, oh, you know, I'm going to have wasted my little thing here, though. This one might get messed up on me because I don't pay for this plugin that it's going to go. But so let's do a new chat. Let's turn on our plugins. Yep, they're still on. Let me enable plugin. Let's do web search AI. That's going to give me a it's going to give me an error. So I'm going to try it without that on and see what it does. So a lot of you, again, please tell me about any recent news regarding federal taxes for small business owners. Summarize it into a newsletter style publication with links. Write it in a friendly but professional tone. So I can't browse the internet. Generally speaking, it's not going to be able to browse the internet. So it's going to pull this out. I have a plugin that allows it to pull internet data, but I used up all my queries for the day because I'm on the paid or the free version before we got on. I'm not paying for it. But this is pulling some sample links in here based on a little bit more dated information. If I'm using the web-based plugin, then it's going to pull up actual information from this, and that site in and of itself is only another $20 a month. It's just not something that I'm currently subscribed to. So you can see how quickly and easily you can start to put together information for your internal team and for your clients. Now let's look at some things that may be a little bit more useful in terms of actually looking at some data. So did you save these prompts for the training, or would you be able to use some of them regularly? Yeah, so you can pick up some of these conversations and keep them going. However, it will eventually sort of break the conversation. I'm going to give you guys see, this one is timed out. It's a good example. You may continue the conversation, but previous files, links, and code blocks below may not work as originally. It's not going to remember the first half of this. But so I did just want to use this example because I think it's important. So I took 12 months of monthly profit and loss statement in a spreadsheet. I just exported this from my accounting system. So please review the attached P&L and create a 13-week rolling forecast. And this to me is the most fascinating piece. So when we talk about the AI, and this is the piece where I kind of got into when we go back to that first slide, you know, I'm just blindly waiting for AI to take over the world, because when I saw the first time it started working through and problem solving on the spreadsheet, I got a little scared. Not gonna lie to you. It was definitely a different thing to see. So you can see it says, all right, give me a sec. And then it starts using some Python script to work through it. Oh, you know what? Let's dig in and check that out. You know, oh, it's got some things. Would you like me to clean up the data a bit before proceeding with the 13-week rolling forecast? Well, yes, of course, my computer overlord. I would love for you to clean that up. You got it. Let's clean up the data, make it more manageable. It's removing unnecessary rows, making sure the columns are properly labeled. Oh, it hit a snag. But guess what? It starts fixing itself. Great, the data is now cleaned up. We've got rid of unnecessary rows and made sure the columns are nicely labeled. You ready to move on to creating it? Okay, go ahead. Awesome. Keeps working through it. Hits another snag, figures it out, works through it. You want it in Excel? Yeah, I'd love it in Excel. I also want it formatted in a way that's easy on the eyes. So what it did is it went ahead and it highlighted the headers and it created a few different things in here. So really neat. As it kind of go through, and you'll see again, it's finding its own issues, it's fixing them. Nailed it this time. And then it gave me a downloadable Excel rolling 13-week rolling forecast. That was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was great. It was something where I was able to use that information. I was able to look at it. It was following trends. I gave it enough information to be able to create that 13-week, but it had a couple of issues in there that had I spent more time with this, if I were actually trying to use this 13-week rolling forecast, I would have simply went back and forth and troubleshot with the machine to get to the point that I needed it to. So those are a few of the ways you can use it. Here's one that I like, a prompt that I think everybody here can relate to. So here's a nice framework you can use for anything. We call this, I'm going to start a new chat for this one. I'm going to turn off the plugins. Oops, default. So tell me 20% of the knowledge I need to be proficient at X as it relates to Y. So tell me 20% of the knowledge I need to be proficient at RPAs as it relates to tax audits. So RPAs are obviously all the rage in the finance and accounting community right now. So these are the things I should know about to be well versed in this and to start to get up. And so now what I may do is, as I'm looking at this, I go, all right, so yeah, I already know that. Okay, what does this mean? How do I do this? Let's focus on number 2. How would I do this? Where do I start? And what are some tools I can use? I got a little Grammarly here to help me. Yep, perfect. So I'm not going to get too deep further in the weeds of this. I just want to give you guys a couple of sample prompts you could use and a feeling for what we have here, especially when you look at, so not just does that, if I'm using the advanced data analysis piece, it also, I can upload any file type here. I can upload a JPEG. I can ask it to reduce the size of an image. I can upload a spreadsheet and ask it to turn it into a graph. I can ask it to give me a visual representation of the data that's on the spreadsheet in a multitude of different ways. Again, the attachment piece is part of the paid plan. So make sure, again, it's worth the $20 to go out there and try it for a month. Try out some of the prompts I have, try out some of the things that you have on your own and use it on the day-to-day. So I'm going to leave it there. I promised David and Charlotte that I would be up on time, keep it up here, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. We're at 5:45 Eastern time. Again, my name is Matt Vaadi. My company provides payroll and HR software and support services to US-based companies. Typically people call us when their clients or their company has HR concerns. They're tired of using ADP or Paychecks, or their employees just need better benefits. We are also a PEO. We put a whole bunch of small employers into one big group to help them buy down the cost of employee health insurance and get better plans for their employees. If you email me and drop me a note, I will absolutely email you this list of prompts I'm looking at over here on my other screen. I got about 25 good ones that I've kind of vetted through hundreds of them online to find ones that are actually usable and ones that we created internally as well. But hopefully that was a good, quick little precursor into AI and some of the ways you can use it and leverage it in your day-to-day today. I'm going to start to filter through the chat here. I see one job search use case. Would one be able to upload their resume and would ChatGPT be able to check job boards on the internet and recommend which jobs they should apply for it? Yeah, so that's one of the first things. And this is the, I'll give a little bit of a caution to the plugins piece. I already mentioned the security piece early on, but plugins, you have to remember, why would I build a plugin to Chat GPT? Is it just because I want what's best for the end user? Well, no, I'm probably trying to sell that end user something, right? And so when we look at plugins, especially, there's going to be a whole bunch of job site plugins, but I don't know, more than anything, they're probably just trying to sell job listings. But I know for a fact there are multiple job site plugins that you could also. So writing the resume is one thing. I'll say be careful. Make sure you're reviewing the text that Chat GPT writes. That is something I didn't really get into in there. It has a tendency to do a couple of things. It makes all of the writing very obvious that Chat GPT wrote it. So right now, for an example, if I were to go through LinkedIn and look at people in my feed at people's posts, I can tell which ones were written by Chat GPT if they didn't do something to modify it and make it look more human. It just has a particular style of writing. It's getting better because what it's asking you to do now is to add custom instructions that allow, how would you like Chat GPT to respond? Tell us a little bit more about yourself. And so it's getting a little bit better, but it's still also like it floods things with emojis. Like definitely make sure you tell it to stop putting so many dang emojis and everything it sends. I don't know why it puts so many emojis and everything. So resume, definitely have heard great things about that. The job boards, there are certainly a bunch of job board plugins that will also help you fetch jobs from. So that's definitely something that's done. Save these prompts to training. Yep, absolutely have those prompts. I'll share them with everybody. Let's see here. Any other questions? And y'all keep firing them in here. Yep, it looks like somebody's already using it for this stuff. Resume, cover letters, essays. So we looked at Bing Chat as a parallel. Yeah, Bing Chat, the problem that I have with Bing is it's so ad driven, Chris. We've run into a lot of the information that it's providing. It's kind of straddling that line of Google where it's surfacing almost information that is formatted in a way that's favorable to Bing rather than just what's pulling from the data set. But I'll be honest, I haven't been over there in a while. I got turned off the first few times I used it, and so I haven't been back.
It's updated a little bit, and I saw the same. I saw the same things you did. The only reason I bring it up is because some of the plugins, I think they can cause a bit of confusion with users in some of my travels as well. But there's certainly pluses and minuses. That's why I didn't ask a pointed question. I was asking sort of what your view was, because I ask this question a lot in travels when I'm thinking about AI. But I do find that like I can throw a text file, I can throw a PDF, I can throw things easily into Bing. Now, the only, your caveat, certainly well founded. My caveat on Bing is every time they do an update, which they say 3 times a year, but it's way more often than that based on some of the engineers that I've talked to on the back end. And when they change it, there are things that I could do yesterday. I throw the same language in and I don't necessarily get I get the same flavor of response, but like there's very specific things. If I'm doing content creation and I ask for emojis to be included in some text, right? Think just like little nuances that were there yesterday and not there tomorrow, right? And so it's not problematic. It's just kind of a pain when you find an answer or you find something and then it's not there, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And I have a theory, and this is just Matt Vaadi, conspiracy theorist, that they're making Chat GPT a little bit dumber to not scare us as much, and also to also just in the respect, I feel like they have some deep concerns around, they turned off its access to the internet. You used to be able to access the internet directly inside of Chat GPT. When I clicked on GPT-4, one of the beta things here was access to the internet. I worry that they ran into a whole bunch of copyright or maybe other issues. So yeah, and there are things in there. Yeah, when I first got ChatGPT, I had it in about an hour and a half. I wrote a Google Chrome plugin using purely ChatGPT, got all the files out of it. It was a working Google Chrome plugin. I can't do that no matter how I prompt it right now. It's definitely been a challenge to try to figure out that same prompt yet. So how do you define a policy on AI usage? I have 15 employees. I'm worried about someone messing up and creating as a security breach. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to fall right in line with all your other technology, security, language, and how you go about that. I view it akin to somewhere between a, BYOD policy, a social media policy, and then, kind of also just us locking down internally sites that we don't want our employees using, right? So I think that's got to be, if you've really got locked down, you really want to manage what and how you want your employees using it. For us, again, that's why we settled on a handful of tools, because we want to vet first what the tools are that our team's using. And yeah, I mean, Chris, it was great to hear from you. There's a whole bunch of different ways to use this stuff. It's really cool to watch inside of an organization, the way marketing uses it versus finance versus customer support. And that's the other thing too, is I would encourage all of you. The thing that we've found too is going back to ChatGPT sort of being in so many different apps now. We use Zoho Desk as our customer support system. Well, they rolled out a back end tunnel that uses ChatGPT to, now we can click for ChatGPT response to a ticket from one of our clients. And it would, yeah, that's right, Bob. You could have it put your AI policy in place for you and be like, let me in no matter what, Bob. But no, when I asked some friends for use cases, particularly one of the first things that came up, not to change gears there, but a lot of folks using it for create an outline of an agreement that I would have with a partner. It's not going to replace my attorney, but if this is pretty standardized language, it can create outlines, it can create the language. And, depending on the risk level, you can either A, now take that template to somebody to have it reviewed and signed off on, or B, have it write something for you entirely, depending on your risk tolerance level. But yeah, I think from our perspective, we've always tried to, going back to the tools that our team uses, limit what and how they're using it, especially on our company machines.